They're sometimes flashing, they're sometimes turned off, sometimes they're glowing red. It's honestly quite confusing if you don't have the manual.
If they're doing that, you got a broken unit, bro. That fan. We haven't used that fan in years. Wow.
Yet, I haven't been able to locate the pattern in question.
This is what scares small airsofters from innovating. What's up, guys? Aaron Bennett with ExFog, and today we got a really awesome video coming at you. And yes, you did hear correct. This video right here, which is posing as an unbiased video by the designers of the Novritsch Antifog-Unit. So this is the designer behind the Novritsch Antifog-Unit, Tridos Design, posing a unbiased review against a, yes, you heard correctly, broken ExFog unit and severely outdated unit. I don't know how he didn't know that. We're going to assume that he didn't, but we're going to clear up a lot of the misinformation and show you how ExFog plays. And we're going to play in facts, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. This is going to be awesome. With this already being a 30-minute video, we're not going to go through and react to the whole thing. It could get very long. If you guys want me later to respond to the whole thing, we certainly can. But again, today is uncovering really the most egregious, most unbelievable misrepresentations, the disingenuous comments as it relates to the quality of our machine, not necessarily all the goodies that they're putting in versus the goodies that we add to our systems. Again, we can talk about that in a million ways from Sunday, but at the end of the day, we're going to make this as brief as we can, but uncover and expose some of the business practices that are engaged in making this happen. So stay tuned. Let's go. So I'm going to move forward pretty rapidly through some of this going forward, but this is what he's doing in the section that we're going to see coming up. Number one, he's going to talk about how he's being objective, again, even though he was the designer, but you're going to get from the tone and the way that he promotes himself that he is as biased as I am when it comes to his product. You are going to see some of the things where he talks about the magnet attachment system. So they do have a magnet attachment system. It's this large piece right here that fits at the top of your goggles like so, feeds in down through the top. That's something we never really encourage people to do because it brings your tubes around the top as well. Heat and humidity does want to go up and out, and it entraps them typically when it does it that way. But of course, with these big honking tubes and the big honking nozzles, I'm sure that they probably put enough air through here to defog the goggle. He's going to talk about the tubing and the unboxing. He's going to talk about our pricing. You guys can look online and compare that for yourself. So those are some of the things that he's going to discuss out of the gate, and we can fast forward through a lot of that stuff. Now, just so that you know, at the time of his video, it is fair to say that we did not have the magnet adapter system that we have now. I'm sure some of our customers are going to go, well, wait a minute, he didn't mention that. To be fair, we did not have that. This is, just so that you know, this is our rare earth magnet attachment system. It has got like a 45-degree nozzle here, so it's pretty cool. So this, and we made it very low profile. Guys that know us knows that we want low profile stuff. We have low profile tubes. We have a low profile hookups, at least as much as possible. So this little end goes on the end of your tubing. It pops right into this piece that's on the other side of your lens. This is, or at the other side of your goggle. This is a little nozzle piece here. It's got a 45-degree bevel that you can angle any way you want to splash your lens anywhere on your lens. So you can actually mount this anywhere on the lens that you want. You can have it directional, flow the air anywhere that you want. Got a lot of videos out, and you guys have seen a lot of these going already, but that did not exist at the time of this video. It was something that we had plans to work on, but we were too busy over the last several years upgrading internal components that that were bad.
So let's see what's in the box. You get the Antifog unit itself. You also get the magnetic mounting system that attaches to your goggles. you get two pieces.
So when you get product from us, especially when it comes down to hosing, it'll never be wrapped up like that.
This is of silicone tubing that you need to cut to your own length.
To be fair though, it does save them good money being able to get that box size down, which allows for less money in shipping. You'll actually notice a large disparity between our box size and their box size, because we want to keep more room so that you don't have things like kink tubing or issues like that. All right, so again, you just saw him go over the different mounting solutions. Well, you didn't see it, we just moved through it, but it was mounting solutions. So he was talking about his magnet adapter. At the time, we didn't have one. Of the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of units that we had out in the field, people would normally tuck them into a comfortable area in their temple where you had a natural gap here. Their goggle magnet solution, providing that you wanted to mount your goggle, mount it right here, providing that it fits, and providing that you know, that the cutter worked properly for that thickness of goggle, then that would be a solution. Otherwise, you would have to buy their goggle. But he also talked about, you know, how do you fix it on a boonie? We've got attachment points for that. He talked about you know, some of those things. So it's mainly just mounting differences between the two. Moving forward on the look and feel, again, this is not going to be objective for anybody because, you know, we're going to talk about it. Again, I'm not in this to talk about all the nitty gritty, how you think something looks or feels. We're going to talk about the realities of the product.
Weight-wise, both of these devices are...
You'll come back to this later, but notice, why does my unit have black electrical tape on it? We'll talk about that as we go.
Very similar. The ExFog comes in at around 95 grams. While the Novritsch Antifog unit comes in around 110 grams. On the top, you'll find the power adjustment dial that, to my knowledge, is the same one that's used in Baofeng radios. So you can get a feel for it if you have one at home, and it basically turns the device on, and then you can gradually increase the power to the maximum. This allows the device to be operated very easily, even when it's on the back of your head, and even if you're using gloves.
All right, I'm going to make a real quick point, and we'll come back to it later. The potentiometer, the super cool, slick, military-looking dial that you see on the unit that does certainly give you a little bit more of a tactile advantage, no question. But at the end of the day, those of us that followed us from the beginning saw that we did use a potentiometer in our product. We absolutely got away from that due to what, during development, during a lot of testing, we found that they were just not reliable. They also couldn't take hit like we needed to. They were a little more prominent. And then it also led to other issues down the line, such as battery bleed during storage, especially if you're not going with the, you know, with the full digital setup versus the ExFog, or such as what you see with the ExFog. So we'll get back to this in a little bit, but that potentiometer, yes, we were going to go that route. Yes, that would have allowed us to get away from some other programming things that we needed to do, maybe save a little bit of money on the back end, but at the end of the day, we absolutely chose not to do that. Many of our followers 6 years ago or so, or 5 years ago or so, saw us go through that transition as we move forward. So let's carry on.
Right next to it, there's a turbo button, which turns on full power for 30 seconds. This means you can basically run it on the lowest setting for most of the time. But for example, if there's some fog starting to form, you can always just hit the turbo button and it should clear up.
Turbo button's cool. Got to give him credit for that. If for a quick clear, that would be nice. Hopefully your unit operates well enough that you should be able to keep it on high, medium, low, and just rock it. And you should have enough battery life, and we'll get to that in just a second. That should be able to get you through a full day either way you cut it. So, you know, turbo mode, cool gimmick. I like it.
To be honest, I always run it on the lowest setting anyways, but I know that there are people out there that are definitely fogging a lot more than me, so it's always a nice to have. On the side, you will find a rubber button that, once pressed, will show you the status of the charge. So red means it's almost out, yellow will mean it's 50% charged, and green is fully charged. And on the bottom, you will find a rubber seal that protects the USB-C connector for charging.
All right, so a couple things on that. Cool with the battery charge thing. I don't know how I would run that on the field when I have my unit mounted on the back of my helmet, nor the reason behind it if you're getting a long day of runtime. But cool gimmick, like it. In B, cover, cool. Gotta give them credit for that. Have we ever had a return due to dirty USB as an issues with that? No, just by the direction in which we set it up, as well as some protections that we do that we'll get into in a little bit.
On the ExFog, the way you control the device is by using this on-off button, which first turns on the device on the high power mode, then cycles through to the medium and then the low setting, and then again completely turns it off. The button itself is very flush and not really tactile. If you're wearing gloves, good luck finding the button.
See, it's comments like this when you really get a feel for how objective this video really is. The reality is that the vast majority of our customers use these with tactical gloves. The vast majority of our customers find the button no problem with tactile gloves, or with tactical gloves, and it is a tactile press. You will actually feel it pressing as well. But again, it's comments like this that go to show you that although he's playing under the guise of being this objective review, it's really not. And hopefully people start feeling some of that as we go, and trust me, this gets a lot worse.
And trying to feel if you actually clicked it or not. Even during filming this video, I accidentally pressed it a bunch of times already, so it's just not a great design for the purpose. There have been several cases where it's actually been super frustrating. For example, if you want to just quickly turn the device off to listen for some distant sounds, on the AFU, you can just quickly turn off the dial and it's off. Whereas on the ExFog, you actually have to quickly cycle through whatever setting you have set and then hope for the best that you actually land on the off.
So yeah, like I said, if you ever have a situation where you had to turn off our unit in order to hear something in the distance, you just don't. And if you did, you have a problem with your unit. And we'll find out more about that as we go.
Offsetting and don't turn it on again. Next to the power button, you will find two LEDs, which are single color, one for charging and one for the battery status. But honestly, I always forget what the indicator means because they're sometimes flashing, they're sometimes turned off, sometimes they're glowing red. It's honestly quite confusing if you don't have the manual.
If they're doing that, you got a broken unit, bro. You're telling me that this whole video is based on a broken unit? They never flash. It's simple. Red charging, green charge, and you sure as heck don't want any lights on while you're in the field. Simple as that. This whole video, and we found this out early on, was based on a critically broken unit with a microprocessor that's saying something is not right. And you'll see that as we go because the performance just isn't anywhere near where it should be with our product. Wow. Wow.
Next to you. And on the bottom, you will find a micro USB with honestly quite a big gap around it. There's a good potential that you can get some dust and water inside the hole if you're not being careful.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. You can. There is potential. When we have guys overseas in the sandbox that are running this, some of them will use like a black piece of tape, little electrical tape that they'll use to cover the the inlet. Aside from that, but they're in the desert. So, but aside from that, haven't run into those issues yet. I've been running mine for 6 years straight. And anybody that runs with our crew know that we're not good on our products. We're not good on our stuff, and yet to have that issue. But sure, the potential's there, even though we've never had a return based on a dirtied up USB port. Not one.
To illustrate the power differences between these two, we'll try to illustrate that with some flour. I'm not sure how it's gonna go, but we'll give it a shot.
So we'll start off with the ExFog unit on the highest power setting and see if that works.
Well, by the looks of it, it's not really doing anything.
We'll now try to do the same thing with the Novritsch Antifog unit.
Blowing flour versus clearing fog. All right, let's just see how this goes. Continue.
Start off with the smallest setting and then gradually ramp up and see if anything happens. So on the smallest setting, you can see there's some movement happening, but very little. So we'll try to ramp it up a little bit. Actually, it's doing something. So we'll increase the power a little bit. Now we're on the max regular setting. And as you can clearly see, there's stuff happening. And we can start to blow the flower away. And if we push the turbo mode, woo, there we go. Whee!
Whee!
So this clearly shows that the Novritsch Antifog unit is more powerful, in case there was any question about it. So in case this matters to you, this is definitely the...
So I'd assume that would look more powerful considering how it was being compared to a broken unit, which is a little bit on the disingenuous side. Let's see how the ExFog actually blows flower. All right, let's see how we're doing against flower. This is on low because blowing flower will tell you how it will clear a goggle, apparently. So this is low. I got my 3 lines, dude. Wait, that's not as horrible as you saw in the video. Whoops, I'm like pushing things. Whee! All right, so that's good. Obviously, that's moving the air. Let's go ahead and go to medium. Okay, catching that.
Yep.
And then let's go ahead and hit high. This will be on high. Wow. At the end of the day, guys, sure, his unit's going to be more powerful, but the idea has nothing to do with that. It has to do with clearing your goggles, not wasting battery life, not drying out your eyes. And as you can see, that works just fine. Maybe if he wasn't comparing it to a broken unit, not as big of a power differential as it was made out to be. But the thing is, if it was ours, it was more powerful at blowing flower, or theirs, it was more powerful at blowing flower. At the end of the day, that's not what it's about. It's about regulating temperature in your goggles, not blowing so much that it dries out your eyes, and making sure you get a killer battery life. Does it work? And does the company back you to make sure it works? And that's what you know you're always getting with us. So let's continue on and see how this train wreck goes.
Both the Antifog unit and the ExFog are barely audible, but keep in mind they're not silent. If you're trying to listen for some distant footsteps, there's a chance you might need to turn them off temporarily. We'll now do a quick sound test for both of these units and see which is louder using the sound meter. We'll leave the timestamps for the different settings for both of these devices down in the video description, so you can quickly jump between them and listen for yourself.
All right, do you hear that? Listen. Listen. Okay. Automatically, major problem. I mean, it comes back to, remember that point where I showed you how he had the tape on the unit? You're getting fan rub in that case. Again, that unit's several years old. We'll get into that in a little bit. But we don't know what conditions it was put under. It's obviously had the lid forcibly removed. It obviously had critical malfunctioning errors, which is why he had the flashing lights, which even he said on this video. So he was comparing it to a broken unit. And even then, ours is just a hair off track of the Antifog unit. So that should tell you a whole heck of a lot. Pretty much everybody that's out in the field, unless they had an issue where they got knocked hard enough that they had the fan come a little bit offline, which again, number one, we can repair a decent amount of time. Number two, we still back that. But even in those rare cases, Nobody that's running this unit's hearing that on the back of their head, guys. It just doesn't sound like that. As a matter of fact, do I have a unit here that works? Yeah. So you're going to hear it run and you're going to hear the air. But do you hear that? Do you hear the clanging? Do you hear that? The rubbing? No. It's just those kinds of tactics, guys. You can make your own choice because there's certain things we're not supposed to say. So did you hear that high-pitched whine right there? That's another indicator that the battery is low. So the processor and the way the board works, a lot of times you'll end up hearing this really high-pitched whine, the way it all works together. And that high-pitched whine that you just heard is not a normal function. It might have had to do with the critical error that was being received by the unit. It might have had to do, most likely that was it, if the battery wasn't getting the proper juice or that the battery was drained before some of this testing. For one reason or another, because that is whining for more power. So it's just a slight high-pitched whine because it's not getting enough battery juice. That's what that sound was that you were hearing right there. It was a key indicator of that, which wouldn't, again, surprise me considering the unit was broken, it had critical errors, and the lid was forcibly ripped off. So I don't know what all is going on in there.
User repairability is also a big factor for me when buying a new device. I'm curious to see what we find inside these. So without further ado, let's crack these open and let's see what's inside. We'll start with the ExFog, as this has been on the market for already 5 years and many consider this as the original. So to open up the ExFog,
what? We were the original.
You actually need just 2 tools, T6 Torx and something to pry and hope for the best that you don't break it. So the adapter can be easily removed. It's just a piece of plastic that splits the fan shroud in 2 separate channels, which then slides into this channel. So the only way to open up this is by prying the lid open. As you can see, I've done that already, and there are quite a bit of scuff marks. You pretty much need to pray and just force it.
So let's go ahead and answer that for a second. The unit number 1 is not designed to be open. We have this go out to a lot of very, very harsh environments. And because of that, we keep this unit sealed up with any ports facing downwards. We have these go into climates that honestly a lot of people around here just can't appreciate. So at the end of the day, it needs to stay sealed, and it's also a safety factor, which we'll get into more later on. But if the unit is even remotely taken care of, you're going to get many years of battery life out of it. Like I said, I've been running mine 6 years. I'm just probably getting ready to retire it. It'll still make it through most of a good day. And there are other factors that we'll go into shortly when we see this. However, biggest issue, that fan. We haven't used that fan in years. So that tells us right away, we don't know what's happened to this unit. We don't know what it's gone through. And of course it was pried open because that's chemically bonded. So let's go ahead and continue on.
On the inside of the unit, you can see the blower style fan, the PCB, which controls the power and the battery. And here on the side, you can see the LiPo battery. Unfortunately, it's glued in, so you can't really take it out without the risk of damaging the battery. It's clearly not intended to be replaced once the battery dies or you have some issue with it. So let's remove these screws and take out the fan and the PCB.
Big difference to point out is when the battery dies, if even the most basic battery maintenance, and even if not, that processor, because it is a microprocessor driven unit, that battery dies in storage mode. Our batteries, and you can ask around, last a long time. We'll go ahead and keep going.
And let's see what we find. When removing the screws, you should be aware that since the battery is soldered directly to the board, you could easily short it out any place. So there's no obvious way to disconnect the battery apart from desoldering it or cutting the wires, which is also not a great thing. But yeah.
It is a great thing if you don't want somebody breaking into the unit. One of the issues that we definitely would be concerned about is if you take a look at some of the quick connects and all that you'll see in this unit right here. We don't want those getting short. We don't want them getting loose. We don't want them arcing. We don't want to risk any situation where we have those types of things coming through, because we are talking about a LiPo battery, and also placement is going to be a huge deal, which you'll see as we navigate these waters as well.
We now remove the screws, so we can remove the fan and the PCB, just like so. And as you can see, there's not really much to it. There seems to be some IC for charging purposes, and also a single button with microcontroller that changes the power output for the fan.
All right, so there doesn't seem to be much to it. There's not much to it because unlike his, ours is a microprocessor controlled in fully digital product. So in other words, what you're going to see in his situation, number one, we have protections built into ours. Number two, the other thing that you're going to see as he goes through it, he's going to talk about battery bleed. So you're going to have situations where his unit is completely off and there's battery bleed as a result. Which means that in time, if you don't either remove your battery or if you aren't using it enough, it can die. And we all know what happens when LiPos completely drain. They're dead. You're buying a new LiPo. So those are things that just don't happen with our product. And as well, that the programming behind our processor also means more protections, which is a big deal if you have a LiPo battery on the back of somebody's head, and especially if it's significantly bigger than ours.
This is a single-sided PCB, so no components on the other side, and both the battery and the fan are directly soldered on with some hot glue. The fan itself seems to be manufactured by a company named GDS Time. It's a brushless DC fan. It's a regular PC blower style fan. The dimensions for this one is 50 by 40 by 10 millimeters. So if you look it up on AliExpress or Alibaba, you can easily get a hold of this exact fan if you wish to either replace it or make a device of your own. Also,
absolutely not. Again, this goes to tell you how disingenuous this video is. He is comparing a new off-the-shelf Novritsch Antifog unit, and we haven't used that fan in years, guys. That means we don't know what the battery's gone through. We don't know what the fan's gone through. We don't know what kind of pressure that's been under. This is our own fan. Actually, it may have the same dimensions or very similar dimensions, but this is a custom mold, custom fan built to our specs, because we know that our units get the crap beat out of them. Now, I'm not going to go to all the ins and outs of these, but there's a lot of differences. So first of all, when we first started, of course, we were using some off-the-shelf products. That GDS Time fan, though, we found that we were having quality issues with. Oddly enough, it sounds like they're using the same one. We had quality issues with that. We spent more money on our own mold and our own fan to combat that, because again, we want to make sure that our customers have the best quality products in the market. So a couple issues that we had and we saw with the GDS Time fans, one of the biggest ones is that when those are shipped they are vacuum sealed. So whatever company he has that's doing this stuff for him, and also remember, we do our product in-house. We don't have it shipped in boxes and then just distributed or drop shipped to our distributors. We actually put it together, quality check it ourselves by our family. However, when these get shipped to whatever company that he is having done, 90% of the time they're vacuum sealed. That means the actual top here is actually moved down and pressed down into the actual fan itself, which ends up creating rub down the line. If not now, it does later. We also found they came off balance a lot easier. The other thing that we also did was create structural support inside of our fan to help keep that kind of issue from happening. It's also a quieter fan, and we also got significantly more runtime out of our fan and our mold. So again, this indicates right away, number one, guys, when you compete with the big box stores, they don't always work in your favor. Number two, this is a very disingenuous video.
So you can see the ExFog consists of very few parts. It's just a battery connected to a PCB that's connected to a fan, and just a single button to control it all. It comes apart relatively easy, but it's not meant to be repairable, so it's pretty much a one-way ticket, to be honest. even though the battery is glued in, let's see if we can try to remove it so we can see what capacity is it.
All right, so again, it's not designed to be taken apart, guys. I can't reiterate that enough, but you can tell by the bias and the way that this video is being done, and that it wasn't just done to a proper unit, that, yeah, it's just not good business practice. And especially from somebody who's a designer. And no, you're not supposed to take it apart, but talk to anybody from our service end. We take care of you. And at the same time, it's going to last you years as long as you take care of it. Real quick tip on battery, guys, as well as really anything else as it relates to the unit, is the fact that we've got a 1-year factory defect warranty. And for anybody that's ever dealt with us, that means that you're going to be happier. We don't want your money warranty. As a small business, see, please understand that we're building everything here. So we're not having just some other manufacturer where we never see the we don't really care. We don't see the product. It gets built. Should be okay, gets shipped into our distributors and boxes, and they take care of it from there. We don't operate that way. We build these units ourselves. We quality inspect them ourselves. We test every fan. We test every battery. We test everything. We test every slider before it leaves. So that's why we can warranty our product like we do. So again, the case is trying to be made here that you're not really going to run into quality parts or subpar, parts, which hopefully we've already shown you that we haven't. We've gone way beyond that. But we have always taking care of our customers. You have an issue, we're here for you. The warranty covers that. And if you could hear all the different stories and over time as you talk to people where we've gone well over and above and will continue to, you'll really understand what kind of love we're putting into this product and why it is you're going to get a product where you're going to get supported, where you're going to get taken care of, and it sure as heck is going to take care of your fog. And
as we can see here on the actual battery itself, this one is a 75 2080, and this is 1500 milliamp hours. Now that we've seen the insides of the ExFog, let's check out what's inside the...
Quick note on batteries. This is not an off-the-shelf battery. This is a custom-made battery. Again, it's a custom-molded battery, and this is not your typical like nickel LiPo battery. We made some upgrades to this. Took time, cost money. Instead of going with and I'm telling you, off-the-shelf batteries, we actually, like I said, had a custom battery done. It's pure cobalt. The reason for that is because it gives you better runtime. It gives you, the biggest thing is that it gives you better performance in colder temperatures. We have a lot of guys who play in some really cold elements. We had some mountain guys, military-wise, that would run it. So we make sure that this performs extremely well in cold weather, which means that we're spending more. Not only to have custom battery done, but also to have it done in cobalt, and also to ensure that we're maxing out the milliamperage for the battery size, because most of the time what's listed on it isn't actually accurate, and we found that out early in the game, which is why we spent the money on that. So a lot of the people that talked about how ExFog hasn't made any improvements and we're glad this product's on the line out there, yeah, we have, but our money, although you hadn't seen them visually, our money has been very, very heavily based in getting better and better quality products to our customers, so they don't get shot up, so they don't have better battery life, so they have better battery life in cold conditions, so they have a safer product, and so that they have a better fan and quieter operation. So all those things lead into a lot more cost from a home-based business, from somebody who actually engineered and invented this whole utility from scratch before it was, duplicated by the big box store, and I guess you could effectually say cheapened up. That'll be up to you to make that choice.
And open up the cover. This just removes as one piece. And here we have the battery. As you can see, the battery itself is noticeably larger than the one in the ExFog. This comes out and there's a connector that you can disconnect. For this one, I suggest using tweezers to remove the connector.
Yeah, we don't plan on doing that with LiPo batteries. Not at this point. Not until we find something foolproof. And especially with that kind of milliamperage right on the back of the head, we just don't plan on going that route at this time.
There we go, that's the battery. So this battery is named DTP 140766. So usually these are dimension numbers.
And just to mention, one of the reasons for that is that when we did go to try to take the battery off, several people will have seen already that it actually flips right off of, and this is not good. So this connector doesn't come off directly. So oftentimes it pulls off of the PCB board, leaving, if you can see it, these two prongs right here. I know it's going to be difficult. Now you're taking this, which was never supposed to come off, and getting it back on the prongs. It comes out way too easy. I can see that coming loose. I'm not a big fan of that.
And it's a 2000 milliamp hour battery. Here we have some sort of adhesive tape or something. It's definitely put in place to just isolate the battery from the whole electrical circuit. It seems like you have to pry this one apart, which is not great, but let's see how it goes.
For the record, my best guess on that isn't as much to separate it from the board as much as it is to adhere the battery to the unit itself, because there is foam underneath their sticky back. I could be wrong, but one thing I noticed, if you don't peel that off and stick this to the back of it, many people end up with some rattle in that battery, whatever, but I guess it's up to you or whatever the manufacturer suggests, because that just seems odd.
It seems like you can pry this one apart relatively easily, and just be aware of not breaking any wires from the fan. Like so. Oh jeez. So it seems like we tore the sticker from the fan off, so let's see what's under here. And as expected, this is also a fan made by the same company, so it's...
Like I said, guys, we got away from that. We ran those things for a couple years, and actually it wasn't even that long. We got away from that really quick in the game. We've been rocking for about 6 years now. So aside from the fact that he was comparing us to an old unit, when we first started off and just got done dumping about $100,000 into dies, research, R&D, patenting, we're getting the patent application through on a utility patent, as well as all the follow-up that there's been over the last several years, which is extremely costly. So of course we're going off the shelf, especially as a small business. Yeah, we got away from those.
Go ahead and remove the fan. There we go, jeez. All right, so this is the case itself. Nothing too special about it.
So I'm sure during this objective review, he's going to go into our custom manifold system, but just in the off chance that he didn't cover our custom manifold setup, which is probably one of an additional huge key benefits of ExFog, we're going to discuss that real quick now. As you can see, his manifolds are these side-to-side manifolds right here. So in other words, you have to go side-to-side. It is a big hole, big tube. You guys have seen before. And be careful, because sometimes these will pop out. Then you need to like glue them back in, kind of like you need to glue with a magnet mount. Sometimes then you've heard some issues with that falling off, and it requires some super glue or something to get that finished or fixed, or whatever the manufacturer recommends. It's a known issue. But most importantly is that, so our unit was designed, and this was freaking costly. Like our manufacturer, our guys for the bodies, and our R&D guys tried to talk us out of doing this, but I didn't want screws that you back out on the field, but I wanted to make sure that you are never stuck with one type of manifold setup. So as you can see, our system comes with side-to-side manifolds, and this is a nice, easy, snug snap-in system. So if I'll give you an example. So typically I'll run, like, say, a downward facing manifold like you see here, snap it in, and I run that on my helmet. It'll go up and through my helmet to keep everything like super low profile and out of the way. I've been pulling these apart, doing all kinds of stuff. This tubing is literally also 6 years old, along with, although I don't believe this unit is, I actually had moved it to my paintball mask. But that, so you can run it. It's super out of the way, comes up and around, and just stays out of the way under the helmet. But let's say I want to drop this on a hat, boonie, something like that. Well, then I'd be kinking my hose if I wanted to get it really close. That's why we developed the side-to-side manifold. But the opportunities that this opens up, aside from the fact that you can run side to side if you want to, like such as what you see on his unit, you can run downward facing if you want to just route it really quickly up and through your helmet into a custom place. But it also allows for, number one, growth and changes with manifolds. Number two, it also allows for things such as our MERV 13 filtration system. We use this in some medical. We use this for people with bad allergies. We use this for people that are in particle-rich environments. So it allows them to do things like, let's say they just want to snap on a MERV 13 filtration system. It's a very inexpensive throwaway system, and then they can pop on their manifold right after that. So there's the things that allows that for. I'm sure because this is an incredibly objective video, he's going to get into that as well. But we'll see if he if that isn't covered. I just wanted to make sure that was covered now.
On top of the actual PCB of the device, as you can see, there's a lot more going on here compared to the ExFog. This is most likely just because they're using the USB-C connector and to support power delivery charging or to just extract.
Props on the USB-C. You know, I mean, great. There is more going on the board, but more going on the board does not necessarily mean it's full digital, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's better, like we alluded to earlier. However, again, props on the USB-C. I don't believe that's the reason why there's more to it.
Extract 5 volts from the power delivery. They just have to use different ICs to do that. And they also obviously have the 2 buttons, the potentiometer. This potentiometer seems to be exact same one that's being used on the battle tank radios. And on the top, the small turbo button. And on the other side, there's not much going on there, just apart from the connection points for the fan and also for the battery. Let's do the same test.
Super important thing to point out. This is another thing that costs us time. It costs us money. This one has not been done. If you see his unit, and I think this is finished. So if you look at his PCB very carefully, and again, this is another thing that was not brought up. Again, more time, more money, more stuff that we put on the table to give a better quality product. Gonna be very hard to see that. But see this PCB board? This is your standard PCB. However, when you look at our PCB boards, when they're finalized, and gosh, if I don't know if this will come through or not, maybe I'll try to take a better picture. Notice the sheen on that board. Yeah, you can see it there. Notice the sheen and the reflection on that board. That is because, guys, we waterproof every single board that leaves our door. It sucks, but we do. And do you know how many units we've had come back because of water damage? 0. Does that mean we won't? Absolutely not. But guys, we spend so much time on the quality side protecting our boards, it isn't even funny. I would have liked to have seen that brought up. Pretty obvious that we certainly waterproof our boards. We've gone through theirs. There is not waterproofing on those boards. And again, understandably so. It costs the factory, it costs the manufacturer, the small business, money and time.
There's actually a big difference in the RPMs in the fan if you compare the two. Now let's turn on the turbo mode.
And that's because our goal is to clear fog, which we do in almost all cases, except those very few where customers don't contact us to get a resolution. It doesn't happen much, but sometimes, usually, it's nobody that ever says it didn't work for them. Very, very few people have ever actually reached out to us. Those that have, we usually find it's a lesson in how to hook things up. They were blocking all the heat and humidity that wanted to leave because they tried to do something special. They went zip tie crazy. They put in a bunch of T connectors that were restricting air, any one of a million different things. And sometimes, like we've said before, we will meet a match that we can't overcome, but that's exorbitantly rare. And in those cases, the person would say it didn't work for me, but ExFog took care of me. That's what our reputation is based on. The RPMs and the speed and all that you see on this really we can dial our fan up, waste of battery juice, give you more dry eye. Doesn't sound exciting to me. I'd rather clear your goggles of fog and keep them clear all day without even thinking about it.
I'm sure some of you will be wondering how BB resistant are both of these devices. So that's exactly what we're going to be testing here right now. We're going to be using 0.25 gram BBs, and we'll do a quick chrono to see what power output we're getting from this SSR port. We're running around 1.5 joules, which is a pretty normal power output at point blank distance. So let's go first with the ExFog. I had to use a bit of electrical tape to hold the lid in place since it's no longer attached to the whole unit. And I'm going to be using a little bit of double-sided tape on the side so it doesn't fly away. So we'll do 5 shots directly at the ExFog at roughly 60 to 70 centimeter distance. So next up, we'll test the Novritsch Antifog.
Of those 5 shots, he also put a couple right on the top, on the battery, which of course is the least likely place to get hit, because you would have to essentially be lying in a sniper position face down, facing the enemy. So good, of course, it's held up. That's one of our strongest points of the unit. But it's interesting that he shot it basically on the battery. I'm curious what our test would have done if we shot it on the battery or on the side, which happens a lot in CQB with this much battery surface area, not to mention a, what was it, 2000 milliamp LiPo battery covering that kind of surface area.
Antifog-Unit. So let's take this bad boy out of the box and whoo, damn, it got completely destroyed, as you can see right here. Well, now at least we know that there's one area where Novritsch could be improving, and that's definitely the material choice for this unit. While the likelihood of this happening, having repeated shots from a meter distance, it's not very likely from day to day, but this could definitely happen in indoors. Apart from the damage, well, the device actually still works perfectly fine. One tip I would have for you guys is the Novritsch unit comes with extra set of Velcros. So honestly, it's not a bad idea to just stick one on the front and just use like a large patch, which will look a lot nicer and could possibly save it from penetrating the box itself. And whatever.
So the solution to is a patch. Okay.
They claimed on the ExFog website, I'm actually super impressed. As you can see, we got quite a few direct hits, so none of them penetrated the box. However, when we hit the actual adapter, you can see that there's a lot more flexing than there should be, and there's something broken here. It's not completely broken, so it's still usable.
All right, folks, this is tricky. Watch this carefully. Remember, he has an unsecured lid. The only way that moved is because of the lid. I can't imagine he wouldn't have known that, being somebody that's worked on this unit for so long in terms of duplicating off of it. But watch how the lid, the only way that this moves is because it pulls the lid. It moves forward because he only has a couple pieces of tape on it. Watch again.
So flexing that there should be, and there's actual adapter. You can see that there's a lot more flexing than there should be.
So that's not at all because of the hit. Video incoming. So as you guys can see, if I just have a couple pieces of tape on the lid, the only way for this to come out and show that it's loose in a bad spot is because the lid isn't sealed. But again, this lid has got tracks. It doesn't work that way. So the regular unit does not have that weak spot. I don't know if you can get that in. As you can see, I'm going to pull it just as much. That doesn't happen, and that doesn't happen because the lid is sealed, obviously. So there you go.
And there's something broken here. It's not completely broken, so it's still usable. So that's definitely a win here. But yeah, it's definitely not brand new.
Certainly isn't brand new. It's very old, as a matter of fact, but that didn't cause any weakness or looseness. It's just that the lid wasn't.
But as for the material, it definitely did the job much better.
So let's see how ExFog truly performs side by side at about 20 feet at about 1.6 joules. unit. Oh my god, the first shot. Wow. Oh my god, are you serious? Alright, dude. It's a goddamn thing though, at least. I mean, holy moly. I think that's a pretty fair comparison. The fact that we haven't, gotten through the unit. You can hit up our page for the full video where we run 3 different camera angles so you can see every aspect that you need to and how we did this. And at the end of the day, to say that you're not going to take a lot of shots on that unit over time, it's kind of, unless you're chair softened, CQB or a lot of different events. I mean, our units, if you take a look at many of our units that have been around and rocking in the field for 4, 5, 6 years, you're going to see that they're definitely have got those white marks, have definitely got some scratches, have definitely got those dings. I mean, these units do take hits. And again, like you see from our battery placement and all that, how we set it up to be as safe as humanly possible when you're putting something like that on your head, how it's designed to take a beating. Yeah, I mean, you see what we do, you see what we put into it, and that is a test. All right, guys, listen carefully to this sales pitch. Listen to this setup. When you go into battery life, it's interesting how all of a sudden, because that product is so amazing, all they have to do is run it on low. But because for some reason my 3-year-old broken ExFog doesn't perform as well, they need to run that on high. So it just doesn't make sense to compare battery life evenly, high to high and low to low, like most people would expect. The reason behind that, of course, as we know, is that the ExFog runs circles around the Novritsch Antifog unit when it comes to battery life. However, you're going to just watch carefully, see how this setup is made so they can go into not talking about how they evenly compare at the same speeds. And they did a lot of work trying to make sure that you believed that our product doesn't blow flower or isn't strong enough or whatever else. So let's go ahead and get rocking.
As we saw in the teardown, the battery life on both should be quite similar. However, it is important to note that on the Novritsch, the battery life should be a bit longer, and as Novritsch states on the website, it should last 10 hours on the minimum setting. One thing I noticed on the Novritsch Antifog unit is that even if the power is completely off, it tends to drain the battery a little bit when you leave it in the bag for a week or so. Keep in mind that both of these units can be run.
All right, listen carefully to that. Let's one more time.
Battery a little bit when you leave it in the bag for a week or so. Keep in mind that
so this drains while it's off. How much time does our stuff spend in bags, and what happens to a light bulb battery when it's fully drained? Time for you to buy a new one.
Both of these units can be run off a power bank in case your battery is on the low side, so that's not really an issue. For example, at Border Wars, I forgot to charge it overnight, so I just stuck my little power bank onto the helmet and plugged it in, and I was able to run it the whole day. On the ExFog, while I was using it, I did not notice such drain, but I still always checked the battery. Plus, it was really confusing to check the battery level with these 2 single LED indicators, so I always just plugged it in.
See, and that's just so disingenuous. At the end of the day, because he has those issues with the battery indicators, it's pretty simple. When I plug it in, it's red. When it's charged, it's green. When I unplug it, it's off. When I run it, obviously I'm not going to have light showing, especially for those guys that want to be running night ops, or again, our active guys that really don't want that showing off in the night. So it's as simple as that. Doesn't make sense.
And made sure it's fully charged before going to game day.
And more importantly, once it's charged, set it and forget it, guys. With our kind of battery life, you don't have to worry about it. You just rock.
Now, we'll try to test the devices and leave them overnight. The testing methodology we settled on is based on the performance testing we did with the flower on the table. It was clear that you could easily leave the Novritsch unit on the lowest setting, and it was still plenty powerful for me to run the whole day without any fog whatsoever. However, when I was running the ExFog, I often had to switch it into the high mode since there was little fog starting to form. So we settled on running the ExFog on the high setting and the Novritsch on the low setting, because even then it was still same power or more powerful than the ExFog.
So since we pretty well established that that side-to-side comparison was an absolute joke at best, it makes sense that we should be comparing high to high and low to low. So let's take a look at how those numbers really add up.
Both running overnight, and here are the results.
All right, so yeah, don't know how that made you feel, but so let's go ahead and talk real results. So running the side-by-side comparisons, just so that you know, again, what they're showing here, total runtime, 8.5 hours on high, which is not correct if they had taken a current unit and not one that was in bad, well, effectively about as close to dead as you can get. ExFog on high is going to run almost clipping 10 hours. Typically, we're going to be right around that 9 hour and 50 minute mark, 9:57, right around there. Novritsch on high is running way less. We got about 6.5 hours out of that. Same runtime going across the board. Notice how they don't even put those numbers up. When you take ExFog down to low, we're running 13.5 hours. Novritsch sells their product to be a product that runs on high around that 10.5 hour mark, I believe. I'm trying to figure out how they got that 10 hours and 49 minutes. I will tell you, none of our tests with the Novritsch unit on high got to 10 hours and 49 minutes. We were showing about, I believe it was about 10.5 versus, again, our 13.5 hours, and 10.5, I'm giving it some credit. So I'll take, even at 10 hours and 49 minutes, we still smoke it. So that's where you land, guys. That's a fair comparison, and that's on two products that will absolutely clear some fog.
Now look, patents have their place in driving innovation and protecting the intellectual property. If you've been to the ExFog website, you'll probably know that they claim they have a patent pending on the product, yet I haven't been able to locate the patent in question. Not only that, but the patent pending status is usually only granted for 1 to 3 years, and in only rare and complex cases granted for 5 years or more, yet ExFog has been on the market for more than 5 years and they still claim it's pending. Look, I'm definitely not a lawyer and I might be...
First of all, that is beyond wrong. A design patent will normally go through significantly faster. They're significantly cheaper and they protect a design. The ExFog utility, in other words, nobody has patented a self-contained system designed to draw air through tubes into goggles for the sole purpose of removing fogs, variable speed with what we put on the table. That has never existed. Now, if a design company working for a competitive company is going to try to look for a patent pending. So number one, to claim that we don't have a patent pending, we have patent pending on the box, which would put us in massive legal trouble if we didn't have that. Number two, when you talk about utility patents, you're talking about a whole different ball game. So those can take 5-7 years to get a utility patent through. They can cost enormous amounts of money. We know because we've been going through that. The process is ongoing. It is absolutely still a patent pending, and any claims otherwise is absolutely false. And here's the biggest concerning thing. This is what scares small airsofters from innovating, because in our case, to have the patent pending, to build it, to do the R&D, we basically put our retirement on the table. We put a little over $100,000 across the table before we could put our very first unit across and say, do you want to buy this? Ladies and gentlemen, that's scary. So when you turn around and you're not getting protections through yet. And you have your big box store who can come through and replicate it very inexpensively because they haven't had to go through the same legwork, and they could care less about putting through a patent on it because they're just gonna play their cards. Number one, that keeps innovation out of there. Could you imagine if somebody Novritsch's size, in support of the airsoft industry, said, man, you know what? Talking about fog, I saw this cool product over here by this other airsofter that was developed. Y'all need to check that out. Think about how much that would drive up reputation. Think about how much that would help drive the sport up. But no, that didn't happen. More importantly, when you take a look at an individual like this, he can claim he searched. At the end of the day, why didn't he reach out to us and say, hey, we have a competitive product we're going to build. I can't find your patent. That is public information. If I can't see a supply, if I can't see that patent application, then we are going to pursue replicating the product. If we are, then maybe we'll look at going a different course. That didn't happen. Now, I can't make your call on that. For me, I find that exorbitantly sleazy. That's totally up to you how you want to make a call on that. But to me, I want to see airsofters innovate. I want to see people come out with new ideas. I don't want them to be scared of guys like this. And again, when they come out with their product, drawing comparisons against old products and broken products of yours well after you've made advancements over the years, we don't stoke fireplaces with $100,000 bills. With matter of fact, we take basically only what's legally we need to take out of the business. Aside from that, everything is gone, you know, to work for taxes and stuff. Aside from that, we don't take big money out of the business at all. It's just enough to get through that. Everything else goes back into growing the business and growing the sport. I wish more companies would see things that way and work together. But as you can see, we do have a patent pending, a utility patent pending. We have filed a cease and desist. So really anything else this guy says is just to cover himself, which is unfortunate.
I'd be missing some information here, but to me, combining a PC fan together with a battery seems like it wouldn't be eligible for a patent.
And he would be correct. If you combine a PC fan with a battery, it wouldn't be eligible for a patent. This guy's a designer. I'd like to think that he knows what he's saying. So yes, he would be correct in that. He would be absolutely incorrect when it comes to a utility patent that I just described. Could you imagine if Novritsch had reached out? I mean, we've been working, as you guys could see, for a long time on improving the quality of a product and putting that money on the insides, although you don't have to see it, and then working to the outside from there. Make sure that foundation is set. Make sure we have the best product available from there and move forward. It's very costly to do that kind of stuff, especially as a small business. It's a lot easier for your big box stores to do that. So let me just finish by saying, you know, in the comments, right, the comments that so few people ever read when it comes down to these kind of videos, they did make a point to say a few notes, and one of those was, it appears we have an older version of the ExFog and they have made improvements internally. However, we could have not known this since it is not mentioned anywhere, and externally the device has been the same for several years. They could have known it. Had they done some basic due diligence after having a unit for that long, knowing how battery life works over that kind of time frame, especially under the pressures and the things that they've done to it, after tearing the unit apart, they had to have known that the fan was off balance. They've had to have known that they're not comparing, at the very least, a new unit anymore. They knew they were not comparing a unit that was in good standing anymore, especially after everything they put it through. They also make it a point to say that they have no financial benefit by doing this video. Of course they do. They are the designers, and these are the little kind of, again, the things that just don't sit right with me. They are the designers. They are the ones who put this together. So they have tons of financial interest by saying, look at what we did, look at what we created, look at what kind of product we developed. So of course there's a financial interest in there, and there's quite a big one. It's marketing for themselves. And the sad thing is, again, people just don't see those comments. Like, for instance, had one of the comments, good review. Well, I typically like to root for the little guy. ExFog should have made some more updates to their product. Again, because he did not compare a product to a new one. And again, nor should he have ever gone after it in the first place because of the whole patent issue, because of the whole patent pending issue. But Yeah, so those are the things that don't sit well. So even though you can come back and play a lot of innocence in this, you set yourself up right, you can play tons of innocence in this. It just doesn't sit right with me. Again, you guys you guys are the judges there. You guys are the ones who can make your own decision. You guys are the ones who work with us. But yeah, just wanted to put that out there. So yeah, to assume that we haven't done anything when you've been testing against a 3-year-old product, it doesn't sit quite right with me. To assume that we don't have the patent because you never reached out, doesn't sit well with me. To try to back up why you took somebody else's utility, not design, utility, and try to replicate that. Imagine again if Novritsch had said, man, you know what, I got this guy over here that's good at some stuff. And get just a quick shout out that can drive up so many small businesses and help everybody out together. No, that doesn't happen. So that's why we're so adamant about fighting this stuff. That's why we're so adamant about standing up for what's right. And that's why we're going to keep fighting tooth and nail, because we're not going to allow this kind of, in my mind, I can't say it is, but in my mind, deceitful business practice. Winter's up to you, ladies and gentlemen. Have fun. Appreciate the time. Sorry this probably went a little bit longer than it needed to be. Are we frustrated? Absolutely. But you know what? We've got the best customer base on the planet. We have thousands of guys who have been using this. We're continuing to build, continuing to innovate. You guys saw the magnet innovations that we've been putting out there. You guys can look at this video all day long, their video there, and kind of put your own personal thoughts out there when you want. But at the end of the day, we're going to keep watching out for you. Service, we have a 1-year factory defect warranty that includes strikes on insured fields. Also, we basically have a, if you're not happy, we don't want your money policy. We've had that since the beginning. We take care of our customers. We reach out to them. If you need help troubleshooting one-on-one, even with personalized one-on-one videos that I put out to help you specifically, we're here. We're always available. Guys, I hope we can continue to earn your business. I promise you, myself, my wife, my kids, we're going to keep making sure that our product's quality inspected. We're going to have the best product out there. We're going to have the most competitive product out there. Take a look at pricing and comparisons, and then take a look at what you're getting for the money. Our standard kit's $59.99, and here's, at this point, again, it wasn't when this video was made. We had to say a prayer, went out on a shoestring, and just hope to God that we had the support from our customers that we did, and we're humbled, and thank you every day for that. And so we've been able to continue to compete at a hard level. Our essential kit's $45.99, so if you add the $575 magnet adapters that we have now, you are still under his $59.99 price by a good shot for what they're charging for their units. And hopefully we put the quality on the map. You understand what you're getting. And guys, we're going to keep rocking and rolling. Tired of letting these big guys push us around. We're going to keep rocking and rolling. Thank you for your support. I'm out.